The Senate has returned to the much contentious tax reforms bill on Thursday, passing all four of them in one fell swoop for the second reading. The Senate passed the tax bills, declining advice to consider the position of state governors, asking the Senate to withdraw the bills for wider consultation. Arise correspondent Omo tells us more.
Senate returns on Thursday to debate the general principles of the highly controversial tax reform bills and passed all four of them for second reading. But to prevent a repeat of the row it generated the previous day, Senate first deliberated on the matter behind closed doors. When the doors reopened, Senate Leader Okwemi Bamidele took the lead debate.
These bills aim to simplify the tax landscape, reduce the burden on small business, and streamline how taxes are collected.
Many senators expressed strong support for the bill to be passed.
In line with our legislative procedure in making laws, agreed earlier today that these bills be passed for a second reading.
As a committee which I chair, that's Finance Committee, I know we are going to be reposed with responsibilities. And our responsibilities, we are going to do it and to discharge it to the best interest of Nigerians.
There is emphasis on derivation according to taxation. And the attempt now is to encourage states to be productive.
The only dissenting voice on the day was that of Senator Ali Ndume from Borno South. Ndume picked holes in the timing of the tax bills. Ndume then advised the Senate to adopt the position of the state governors and the National Economic Council, asking the Senate to withdraw the bills for wider consultation.
As it is now, because the governors have not come out publicly to change their position. The traditional rulers have not sat down publicly to change their position. NEC have not sat down to change their position. And for me, these two things, derivation and VAT, even though you say it will be addressed at the public session, it's not something that many of us will agree to it.
I beg to disagree with you that this bill should be withdrawn first and consultation should be held with the Nigerian Governors Forum and traditional rulers.
Ndume's suggestion was flatly rejected as the Senate proceeded to pass the tax reform bills for second reading.
Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. These bills are now referred to the Committee on Finance to revert to the Senate in 6 weeks.
The Senate, however, mandated its Committee on Finance to extend invitation to the Governors Forum and other interest groups to the next stage of the tax bills, a public hearing where all of the contentious issues raised by Ndume can be properly ventilated. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has held an executive session to deliberate on the tax reforms bill proposed by President Bola Tinubu. Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, says the proposed tax reform bill will require consequential constitutional amendments, but says the lawmakers have resolved to continue consultation for adequate briefing on the bills. Kalu, who presided over the Special Ad Hoc Committee on Constitution Amendment meeting, affirmed that there are certain clauses in the proposed tax reforms bill that requires the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. The Deputy Speaker also disclosed the Special Ad Hoc Committee's plans to meet with state governors and political parties, stressing that the ongoing constitution review is not partisan.
Establishment of a collaborative framework, a one-stop shop where the Governors Forum can articulate their collective position and work with our committee to drive meaningful constitutional amendment, considering that a similar collaboration in the past enabled the devolution of powers from the exclusive to the concurrent lease in the areas of aviation, railway, power, and correctional services. A post-legislative scrutiny of the consequential responses to the amendment of the Constitution has been laid bare by the establishment of State Electricity Regulatory Commission by a good number of states. We also highlighted matters such as special seats for women and related gender issues, including state policing, devolution of powers, and local government reform, which have been of particular interest to the forum, especially following recent Supreme Court judgment, noting that their perspectives will guide the committee in addressing them and other pressing concern. We further informed them that the committee is currently reviewing 161 constitutional amendment bills covering thematic areas that I mentioned here in the course of my report, and invited the leadership of the Nigerian Governors Forum to the upcoming local government summit.
All right, then, we're seeing the Nigerian Senate having passed the tax reform bills for its second reading, introducing the significant changes. Key proposals in there, of course, included the value-added tax for states now from 15% to 55%, reducing the federal government's share to 10%. Local government's share remains unchanged, and other measures that aim to, of course, ease tax burdens on small businesses and individuals. The Senate leader, Senator Okoyemi Bamidele, came out and continued to emphasize this poor and pro-business nature of the reforms. However, we're continuing to see, like we saw in Omar Bazwaye's report, Senator Ali Ndume opposing the timing and arguing about the constitutional amendments that are necessary before implementation. He's also calling for, the further consultation with stakeholders, including governors and the rest of them. But the next steps now, the bills now being referred to the Senate Committee on Finance is going to conduct a public hearing. Is they're expected to involve the governors, and the committee is expected to report back in 6 weeks. The president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has assured Nigerians that the final legislation will balance national interests and the public welfare. All in all, I always like to say, when we touch on this type of things, that really what should be at the minds of our lawmakers when they go in to push for such reforms is to always remember that what is important is the need of the Nigerian people, all in all. Doctor?
Okay, I made the point yesterday that this reform is inevitable. It is welcome. Many years back, I think I helped to edit a book on tax administration in Nigeria. So we looked at all these tax issues. Even my original assignment was to edit, from tone, language, reading, and all of that. But that gave me an opportunity to gain some little knowledge about tax administration. It's a book on the shelf. So this tax system in Nigeria needs to be reformed. I've made that point. President Tinubu has made it one of the highlights of his reform program. And I have been saying, since this topic came up on this table in the last 2 days, that it is an important assignment. President Tinubu, having seen that it's an important assignment, set up the Taiwo Oyedele Committee. The politicization of something that will promote the common good, that will promote the public interest, is something that all of us should consider deplorable. I am therefore not surprised that despite the drama in the Senate, the majority of the people in the Senate are supporting this bill that is pro-poor, that will promote competition, that will ensure equity, that will ensure justice and fair play, as both Taiwo Oyedele and Zak Adedeji have pointed out. That's the basic thing. The House of Representatives passing it, second reading, I don't have a problem with that, because we need to take a look at this tax system. Now, the thing about the taxman logic is that people are always suspicious of the taxman. And I said yesterday, quoting Wale Edun, the coordinating minister of the economy, that he had set the benchmark earlier on in the advent of the Tinubu administration, that this is not about, taxing people more. It's about increasing revenue and also ensuring justice. And that is precisely what the Taiwo Oyedele Committee has done. To say, look, if you earn 100 million and above, you pay 25% tax. So this problem is not just the resistance. It's not just from Northern Governors Forum, the Governors Forum. Maybe the people who are earning over 100 million, you know, just pretending that they are interested in Nigeria, just want the Nigerian poor, people like us, to suffer more. They will say they are doing philanthropy. They will be donating borehole. They will be donating keke maruwa, keke napep, and all that. They will say we are supporting the system. Look, every man that earns more money than the other person must pay tax. You can't use this environment called Nigeria to enrich yourself, and you say, do you want to pay? That's a cardinal principle that Taiwo Oyedele pointed out. Now the House of Reps has done it, past second reading. They say they want public hearing. The public hearing should be conducted, but it should not be conducted in an abracadabra manner. Because this National Assembly, we have seen, when they say they want to do national hearing, some of their national hearings have been done in less than 24 hours. They will publish notice. The next day, they will sit and say they have passed the bill. There must be transparency. There must be responsibility. There must be accountability. So I don't understand, what the furore is all about. I find the argument put forward by the FIRS and also by the Taiwo Oyedele Committee convincing enough that tax administration in Nigeria needs to be reformed. And I think that all of us must support the administration in supporting it so that people who earn 50,000, 70,000 naira will not have to pay tax. In fact, I will go a bit further, that some of us should be excused from paying tax. The people who earn big money, they should be the ones to pay tax.
Say some of us. Like you're included in the people that are not making big money.
So which big money?
Doctor.
Doctor, we know.
Avoid comedy. This
we
money,
know.
which big money?
We know.
I mean, the truth has to be said. And you see, we need tax reforms. There's no how. People need to pay their fair share. But I also understand the grouse of the North this morning. What is the grouse? The clause that talks about tax now administered based on consumption. What consumption activities? And I get the grouse. But also, the fact that this tax bill is pushing most of the tax revenue now to the state as against the federal government. So there's more pots to share. But the pot will only come to you if you work hard for it. So rather than getting angry, I'll say, improve consumption in your area. What is consumption activity? I talked about tourism yesterday. Today I'll talk about agriculture. There's a study that a friend of mine, Bamidele Ayemibo of 3T Impex, did of the comparative advantage of each state in the north in agriculture and solid minerals, and also activities in general to generate trade and economic traffic. There's a capacity, but what I have not seen is the level of ingenuity. Let's go back to the 60s. After the 59 election, let's even dial back to the Richards Constitution or the McPherson Constitution that really brought about these regions. You can see the competitive advantage of each region. Awolowo did free education with a lot of people from Awokoya. And you can see the eastern region too try to get an uptick in education. The north focused on agriculture. All these centers were centers of production. But the problem here is, because there's a feeding bottle called FARC, which I think should be removed from the states, then all of these states have become so subservient that they are not productive in their areas. And that's what this tax reform is saying. Let's grow these areas. Apart from that, he talked about also a pro-poor policy. Not pay minimum wage, companies even earning. But it's also a pro-small business policy, tax policy, because companies earning less than 50 million naira. The last finance bill used to be the 25 million naira threshold. Let's be pushing 50 million naira. Also, yes, I know there may be constitutional reforms in terms of when you're talking about derivation and that clause. We can also pass through all of these things. I hope the public hearing will be very engaging. But the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And see, for those that are having discussion about this law, it's not once it's passed, it's never going to be reviewed. There's still going to be bills brought for the review based on the use. At least let us go through the process, use first, and not see what is wrong with it before we now come back and tweak. It's an ongoing process. Rather than saying throw the baby away with the bathwater. Because yesterday, my very good friend and Oga Elumelu started with Order 12 paper that Taiwo Idele will not come in. Today, he's talking about something else, constitutional area. Let us allow this go through. We will use the law and we will refine it as it goes on. That's about it.
I wanted to add a caveat to some of the things. Well, not quite a caveat, just to add to it that on Monday, you said that this bill will be passed.
Yes.
It's an executive bill because it's Tinubu's bill.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, nobody should be surprised that the Senate and the House of Representatives, they are more or less in one mind about this reform. So, but the impact of the reform, the effect that it will have on the Nigerian society is something that we should begin to think about. Yeah. Secondly, you mentioned a man that is very important. You mentioned Awokoya. Yeah. Stephen Awokoya was the man, in fact, who introduced the universal free primary education system in the Western region. I presented the Stephen Awokoya Foundation first lecture in his memory. So when we talk about basic education in Nigeria, free education in Nigeria, that is the man. Yeah. Yeah. But the credit, of course, goes to Awolowo, who appointed him as Minister of Education. They later fell out over education funding and all of that. Yeah. But it's good you mentioned him. Yeah. We must always give people credit.
And Awokoya had not been given his credit, and it was a good thing you mentioned.
Well, I didn't say that, but I've just said people must always be given credit.
Well, he's been given.
I don't want to get into Ogun State politics.
He's been given his flowers.
Over education, who did it?
All right, then let's move on very quickly. As part of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's state visit to France, the chairman of UBA Group, in the presence of President Tinubu and the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, signed a landmark business cooperation agreement with the French finance minister, Antoine Armand. The agreement is a significant indication of support by the French government for the development of UBA's full banking operations in France. Speaking at the signing ceremony, Elumelu, the chairman of UBA Group, commented, "This partnership reinforces our commitment to seamless international banking services for our customers, not just across the 11 Francophone African countries we serve, but Africa as a whole, and French and European customers transacting with Africa. Expanding into France is a natural progression, with Paris serving as our European Union hub, as we continue to bring Africa and the world together through the innovative financial solutions. Paris will join London, New York, and Dubai as a critical component of our unique global network. United Bank for Africa is one of the largest employers in the financial sector on the African continent, with 25,000 employees group-wide and serving over 45 million customers globally. Operating in 21 African countries and the United Kingdom, the United States of America, France, and the United Arab Emirates, UBA provides retail, commercial, and institutional banking services, leading financial inclusion and implementing cutting-edge technology. Definitely like a huge development that we're seeing on the sidelines of what's currently happening, this auspicious occasion, if I would say. And with what we know about UBA having expanded their financial services this long, it's with President Bola, of course, Tinubu being in France, it's a situation where we're seeing the financial implications of it as well. Rufai?
I mean, like we talk about deals everywhere. It's a welcome development. We've seen the one of UBA trying to tie their knots, for African businesses across board. Most importantly, I think as this visit continues, we want to see more sustainable deals. That's just it. We want to see more sustainable deals.